I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, and for the next hour, I'm going to be talking about something of vital interest to all of you, my loyal viewers through YouTube and throughout the United States, and most especially Dayton, Ohio, and the surrounding suburbs, where I have been producing this show for almost 7 years. It's hard to believe, but the show itself goes back to 1982, but I got involved with DATV, and I'm so delighted. The people are awesome. I mean it. Television is wacky. And it can be very, 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 very intense. Quality varies, but I'm proud to tell you that I have, in my opinion, one of the top videographers in the region, Ben Artist, and I have an awesome producer as well, Melissa Constantine, and to make sure this thing gets aired on time and quality. You cannot contest or challenge the quality of the programming, the quality of the videography, and the lighting, all of that. This is absolutely a five-star experience. So I want to go open up with that because it's important to tell people when they do well and when they've done well and how blessed you've been. It's everybody appreciates acknowledgement, and today it just seems like so many people are self-centered and self-absorbed, and they never take the time to say thank you. And I'm taking the time to say thank you because I really genuinely appreciate it. So what am I going to talk about today, since it's just me and you, my viewing audience? Well, I thought I would talk about today the issue of what is a trusted advisor, and for every area and every part of your life, to help you and to guide you so that you will not make horrible, horrible mistakes. One of the things that has been so sobering to me is when you sit down and you talk to people that are getting ready to retire, want to retire, and when you look at what they've accumulated over their lifetime, and sadly, and this is statistically validated, the average person has been able to save up maximum $25,000. And they have, that's it. That viewers is it. Is that you? Where you wonder what the heck happened? And I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you what happened. And this is why I'm talking about from the perspective of a trusted advisor, meaning I am trusted by my clients to offer them only what works for them. It's not one cookie fits all. It's what is your circumstances and what cookie can I find. And so that when you do reach the age of retirement, that you have something besides nothing. And when I say that, many people, statistics say again, 67% of people retire with a mortgage. That is so hard, making those monthly mortgage payments to a bank when you don't even need the tax deduction, The house may be worth more or less, but now you've got other things to deal with beside the mortgage, which is your real estate taxes, your homeowner's insurance to keep your house from burning down. If it does, you get money. If it floods, you get something. You also have to deal with deferred maintenance, which for many people as they retire, that is a challenge, which is my roof needs to be replaced. Well, yes, that's a 15-year cycle, and yeah, it does. And my furnace has gone bad, and this is happening, and that is happening. I just want to throw in the towel and move, which for some of you may not be a bad way to go, because if you cannot keep your house up so that at some point you can sell it and move into something else or move into a different way of life, then it's probably best if you let it go. And since you don't own much on the mortgage anyway, hopefully you haven't refinanced, then maybe you can come out of that okay. That's not the focus of today's conversation. Focus of today's conversation is to be able to share with you what I, as a trusted, meaning I work with people on a personal basis, advisor, which means I advise them on life. Everything from investments, insurance, real estate, kids, grandkids, property, trusts, wills, everything. Do I love my work? Well, I've been doing it for 40 years. I guess I like it. Sometimes it's a challenge, not the work, but sometimes the situations I find myself in. So I thought I would do today's show on why you need a trusted advisor. And it doesn't have to be me, but you better find somebody that you can count on who has the vast perspective of knowledge, but also has wisdom, because wisdom only comes from life experience. You cannot get wisdom at 20 because you haven't been around long enough to speak to anything. How I dealt with things in my 20s and 30s is so dramatically different than where I am today. I will tell you that what I do today is I'm so much more patient. I am so much more understanding and empathetic. I didn't say sympathetic, I'm empathetic. I can feel what you're dealing with. And I am certainly not color specific, because I find that life is just a real interesting experience for everybody, even those who have, quote, arrived. Well, you know, you arrive and at 60 you're diagnosed with lung cancer. You've never smoked a day in your life. And at 61, you're not here among the living. That's what I'm talking about. That's life in motion. And for many of us, without having achieved balance, we will go flying off in one direction or the other. Let me give you an example. An associate of mine, at 48, it's a great age to be, by the way. In some ways, I wish I was back in my 40s. Gosh, it was so much fun. But all he thinks about is celebrities and money, because that's the message that's being bleeped 24/7 on television. You got to have money, you got to be a celeb, or if you're not a celeb, you got to rub with celebs. He is not a celeb, and he doesn't have any money, and he's not willing to come out of the box of his thinking to make the money piece happen. The celebrity piece, that's a little different. I mean, that's a very small population group. Sports people, media people, that's very small. But are you willing to come out of the box and do something a little different? Like have your own business. Use your skills so that you can do something that's productive, that will create a cash flow for you now, tax benefits now, and a nice nest egg if you do it right later, rather than talking about it, which shows to me incredible immaturity, which I can say now because I'm there. Now, again, 20 years ago, I may not have seen it like that, and I may have been really, really excited to try to help him. But one of the things as you grow older and wisdom begins to settle on you is people that have a perspective about life and a perspective about themselves that says that they're not going to reach the finish line the way they thought are not people necessarily that you should embrace and offer counsel. The Bible talks about getting understanding. Of all things, you want to get an understanding. You want to understand how things work. You want to understand how people do what they do. And while I'm not a master, I will tell you that I have advised and counseled thousands of people. And rarely with all of the advice that has been given over the years, have people made it to the end. Why? Because the conversation that's going on in their head about who they are, what they want, what they're doing, is not a conversation that's conducive to long-term success. That's financial, which is money, which is also emotional success, which is I have a balanced life, I'm not crazy, I don't associate with crazy people, and, I don't speak ill of them, but that's not what I do. And finally, again, spiritual, which is, have you fulfilled your purpose on earth? Are you just running the race without any understanding of the end game? Where are things heading for you? Now, I speak this very carefully because the subject matter today is trusted advisor and why I think I'm all that and a ton of bricks or bag of popcorn or whatever. But my point is that when you have reached a certain point in your life where you can begin to assess objectively all the things that have happened to you, through you, with you, and around you, then what do you know? You've arrived. Wisdom is now your friend, and you look at situations and people very, very carefully. They say it's a consequence of getting older. That's what the old people told me. They say, baby, as you get older, you're not going to say much to people. You're just going to look a lot. And I have to be in agreement with this because there used to be a time, I'm not kidding you, if you read my dossier, if you type, Michelle Graves was doing everything, trying to help people, trying to help them. But you know what I learned? If you're not willing to help yourself, all the do-goodism that I was doing was for nothing. If you are not challenged to do better each day, to do better, much better, to not repeat the memories of the past, because that's where many people get stuck, is right there. You're not 20 when you're 60. Don't do it. You're not even built like a 20-year-old, okay, male or female. Live actively in where you are right now. Right now. Don't wear things that make people put a question mark by your name. Don't do that. And engage in conversations with an objectivity that has been seasoned by time. The reason I can't get but so connected with all of this stuff that's going on politically is because I understand one of the laws of physics. This is an immutable law, meaning it's not going to change. God said it. What goes up must go down. And it will. Nobody is going to always be where they are or think they are. People die, people get sick, people transition, people do other things, okay? And so I can't get but so involved because the truth of the matter is we had Joseph McCarthy according to history books, and before Joseph McCarthy we had Woodrow Wilson who was woo-wee, and we had other people. We've always had people who did stuff. And are they here? You read about them in a history book. Young people don't even know who you're talking about. So I say all this to say that I have to do what I have to do. And I cannot allow life circumstances to distract me. And I won't. And that's called wisdom. I've gotten to that point now where it just doesn't move me. I look at this stuff, and as not to say that I'm going to be against anything. I'm not going to do that either. But I am going to do what is, in my opinion, reasonable and logical for where I am in this life. And the truth of the matter is, at this time in my life, I have lived almost 67 years. In a couple of months, I'll be 67. That's a long time. It is my prayer that I live to see 100. But the statistical probability of that is quite low. It just is. Why? Because humans are not cars. And sometimes things cannot be fixed or repaired. And then many times people just, their time is up. God says, come home and you're done. So because I've been graced and blessed to be this age, I don't want to waste time on things that I cannot change. I don't. I do know that for me, I'm more impactful on a one-to-one basis. Now, it didn't always used to be like that. It just didn't. I used to feel that, you had to have a platform and a bandwagon. And the reality is that I did not find that it worked well for me, because I'm more interested in looking at how my advice can help people's lives individually, as individuals and families, to improve, starting with my own family. And nobody could have painted the picture that I'm walking through right now as we speak, because life is what it is. For everybody, for anybody that calls himself a human, I don't care what part of the world you live in, life is life. And you will go through it as long as you're breathing air. You will have some experience. Now, do you want a positive experience? Do you want a focused experience? Do you want a directed experience? If that be the case, then I would say to you that you're a prime candidate to have a trusted advisor, known as a coach maybe for some, but for others it's just having that third person at the breakfast table to make sure that you've looked at all things carefully and that you're mature enough to operate on it. For example, there are 4 seasons in a person's life, period. It mirrors what's going on outside. It's amazing. There's spring, summer, fall, and winter. And during each season of life, there are things that happen. If you look at nature, in the springtime is where things that were dead begin to come to life. That's the baby period. And in humans, the springtime of our life is again before we're married, before we're out of college. We're living life. We're enjoying life. Look at a child. Everything is so amazing. And we are dependent upon the wisdom of others, and in other cultures they call it the elders, to guide us and even tell us what to do, because we don't know much. Okay, that's the spring of our lives. When do you need an advisor? Well, at that point you need a mature, it doesn't have to be me. It should be your parents. It should be someone you respect and trust and admire. And at that point, you begin to develop all of your indicators for adulthood, because it is in the summer of your life that you move into adulthood. And that is that you've ramen noodled your way through college. You have gleaned relationships and friendships. Many of you may be living in other parts of the country. I certainly did. When I was 17, I got on an American Airlines jet. I'd never been on a plane in my life. And flew to the eastern part of the country, New York City and then Connecticut. Why? Because this is what I wanted to do. And because I had the support of my parents. That was very important. I don't think I would have done it if I didn't have the strong support of my parents, who felt that as a black female back then, I would get a lot more support than in the East Coast than I would in the Midwest. And they were quite right. The relationships that I developed when I went to the East Coast, the lifestyle changes, thinking patterns, the dynamic interfaces that I got as a young person were imprinted on me even today, even as we speak, the things I learned when I was young and impressionable. And some of the impressions were not necessarily positive, but it didn't matter because I was young, and society gives young people some measure of grace because they say they don't know anything. They're not that bright. They're just going through life. Adulthood, the shift begins, which is the era of accountability. And in your 20s is when many of your life decisions are made. And that is the issue of are you married? Are you single? Are you alternative lifestyle? Have you finished college? Do you have a trade? Are you moving away from your parents' home? All of these are a part of adulthood and recognizing what do you want to do. It is in your 20s and your early 30s that, again, the habits that you develop then become permanent. It is when you learn that your parents were not perfect, that your parents made lots of mistakes, but as long as they loved you and cared for you and gave you strong foundation, spiritual, emotional, as well as physical, taught you good cleaning habits, taught you good personal hygiene habits, taught you how to cook, clean, take care of yourself. Okay, that's again adulthood. The issue of marriage, who is my soulmate, or what does that look like? And the experimenting and trying to find your way, because nobody can tell you about relationships. All you can do is learn by example. How were you raised? And if you weren't raised with stability, then in your adulthood, you're going to confront what that looks like and the choices that that's going to require. What does a trusted advisor do at that point? A trusted advisor at that point begins to point out to you that you now have choices and that you are going to have to invest in yourself, because the greatest choice you will make as an adult is, will I live a life of purpose or will I just be a plumb fool? And I say that because, let me tell you something, and hear me well, young people as well. It's okay to be a plumb fool when you're in your 20s, but when you cross over into 30, no, you've been replaced by other plumb fools that are in their 20s. And they're looking at you like, what? You're old. You're like, I'm not old. Yes, you are. You crossed out of 20. People expect better. So again, it's during that time that you begin to learn and to put in place, what are you going to do? Are you going to live a life of purpose? Are you going to be just a plumb fool wandering around? And an awful lot of people are wandering around. And truthfully, I'm not the person you want to talk to. I'm just not. And you wouldn't listen to me anyway. Okay? You're not. So I'm focused on young people who have made decisions in their emerging early adulthood about money, about goals, about saving, about investing. Because when you're young, thanks to the power of compounding, you can actually accumulate a ton of money by the time you get my age. And so some of the decisions that you may want to make, because temptation is great, like I want to buy a car. Well, what kind of car? And how often do you drive a car? And Uber is phenomenal along with Lyft. And does your lifestyle support not only the car payments, but repair, maintenance, and car insurance? Are those choices you want to make now when you're just trying to get onto your financial life? Now, with some people, it's a thoughtful conversation, and some people, it's a dismissive conversation. But at least it's a conversation rather than just being out here doing stuff, because that's going to get you. The pattern and the habit and the practice of doing stuff without thought and consideration of long-term ramifications is real when you're young, but you will bear them. Trust me. Trust me. The marriages that blow up in the 30s, when you're in your 30s and 40s because of choices made in your 20s, oh, I'm so in love. Well, what does he bring to the table? Girl, he got it going on. What does he have going on? Do you have a bank account? Does he have money? Yeah, money. Right, money. Because a man that cannot provide for his family needs to be single. He don't need to be looking for nobody. He need to be out here trying to do what he does. And as females, if you're not bringing the best to the table, then you got to work that out. But if you're a same female and you got it going on and you want to hook up with somebody that doesn't, well, I can tell you as a trusted advisor, that's not going to work. You know why? Because you're going to be sick of and tired of being his mother. Okay? Now, men, I'm not disparaging you because you know what I'm talking about. Those that got it going on, you should not be looking for a wife. And she doesn't have something to bring to the table other than a beautiful face and a nice body, because everybody knows what happens after you have children, unless you're an entertainer and you can pay a ton of money for somebody to get rid of that stuff. But for most of us, things do change. I don't look the way I looked in my 20s. I don't want to look like that. I was 110 pounds. And if the wind blew too hard, I would be in the air. I was some, okay? And thought I knew everything. Oh my goodness. Thought I knew everything. That's laughable when I look back. I can be open with myself. I can be open with you, because hopefully you'll glean something and say, you know what, she's right. You know, I'm just too full of me, and me ain't happening because me don't have any money, and me is looking for a groundhog to take me into a nest. Be open about it. But again, that's adulthood, early adulthood. When you roll into your 30s, you're into, again, that summer, shoots are coming up. Like with plants, shoots are coming up. Seeds have not started bearing new fruit, but stuff's growing because you've gone through spring, now you're in summer. Now, as you mature into adulthood, decisions that you make will have positive or negative repercussions. I'm talking to you now. The power of money is about the power of money. Nobody in their right mind wants to be struggling and poor as an adult. Why? Because we live in a society that does not care. I mean, nobody is rushing to pay your bills. Nobody. And probably by your 30s, you have learned in your 20s that having children without fathers is a bad idea, and that you wind up being both mother and father. Now, before all of you go into a thing with me about, I can handle it as well as a man, stop it. Time out. No, you can't. I've been there. So I'm being transparent. I've been there. It's hard. It's hard when you have more month than money. Okay? It's hard paying for daycare, paying for clothing, giving them a quality of life that you deem, that you want. That's if you've been raised right. Now, if you haven't been raised with any expectations, that's a different story. But I was raised with expectations, and I wanted my children to enjoy the same thing. What I didn't know and didn't understand is that, again, we live in a society where the burden of raising children is disproportionately on females, whether they're married or single. It's still on the mother to train the child, unless you want a real crazy child that matures into a crazy male or female. That's the truth, okay? So in my particular case, because I was raised in a Christian home with a very strong father, alpha male, strong mother, alpha female, there were certain expectations. And the fact that I had children and did not get child support was like, really? You should have chose differently. We tried to tell you, but you were young. So I raised them and I sacrificed and I became very, very good. Now listen to this. I became very good at getting advice from people that I believed had done it better. And the acknowledgement, this is wisdom again, acknowledgement that some people did it better and are living very different lives than I was. And I began to go to them and I began to watch them and I began to imitate them. And what do you know? My world began to change. I was moving now into serious maturity as an adult. Got a home, children went to private school, started my own business. That's one of the first things I learned. You will never ever be in control of your life until you are in control of your life. And that's why I'm such a strong advocate of people having their own businesses, entrepreneurs, because the reality is, as long as you're working for somebody else, you're working for somebody else. And for some of us, that may not be bad, because self-employment means incredible discipline, incredible focus, the willingness to do without a lot of stuff, to enable you to build your business, grow your business. And in my particular case, because I had children, I had to do that as well. So again, growing up and maturing, what would I tell you as your trusted advisor? I would tell you, if you are in your early adult years, find somebody that you can look up to and follow. And I don't mean Facebook either. I'm talking about most successful people are not on Facebook anyway, other than just zip. They don't invest in Facebook. Why would they? They're running their companies. They're taking care of their obligations. Many of them have families. Many of them are incredibly busy. Yeah, because running a business is work. It really is. Now you're working for yourself. And if you don't make any money working for yourself, that should tell you something. Maybe you need to work for somebody else and learn what it feels like to work for somebody else and to do what they tell you to do. For some people that works. It didn't work for me at all. So I made the leap in my very early 30s. I just concluded that there was no way I was going to make the kind of money I needed to make to give my children the lifestyle I wanted them to have. I didn't even think about myself. I was mainly concerned about my children. And I made the leap, and it was a tough leap, but my father was behind me. He loaned me my first $5,000 and told me, now leap. And I did. And it was rough. Somebody should have told me it takes about 5 years before you have something really going on. But was it worth it? Well, yeah. I've been in business now for over 35 years. And life has been okay. I don't have any complaints. I really don't. I learned from people who did it better, who did it smarter, who were not faking it. See, the concern I have with so many of our young people today is you are worshiping and idolizing people that you don't know anything about. You have not watched them carefully, you've not watched their moves, you're looking at all the flash and dash, but that can go. That can go in a heartbeat. Who are you looking for to offer you substantive guidance and instruction? And believe me, they may not be open to you talking to them at all. Because the challenge with young people is that they are young. And, you know, rather than them listening, they want to tell you. And sometimes they're right, but many times they're not. So there you are. So you're into your adulthood. And you're looking at what your life choices are going to mean and make. And I'm still talking to you as a trusted advisor, somebody that's been with you a long time, knew your family, knew your church, knew your associates, know a little bit about you even. Knew where you went to school, knew what that looked like. That's all a part of that relationship. When you begin to go into the fall, that's another transition, it's going to tell the story. It's going to begin to tell the story when you cross over into your 40s and things have not been handled right. It begins to blow up in your face. Marriages falling apart, other situations, mental challenges, sadness and sorrow in so many cases because it occurs to you that you made some very bad choices. For those of you that made great choices, my goodness gracious, the fall is going to be awesome because it is in the fall that you have harvest. You harvest the results, the seeds that you planted in the spring and began to build in the summer. You nurtured, you fertilized, and now in the fall you get to harvest. And if you've given your seeds, and this is so essential, if you've given your seeds good soil, they will multiply into wonderful things, absolutely wonderful things. And you'll begin to see and appreciate the value of the harvest. For many, the harvest doesn't look good because the seeds that were planted were deformed, disfigured, and there you are. You were looking for something, instead of tending to the seeds, you were out flying with the birds. and now your poor little seeds are shriveled and don't look like they have much going. Translation: when you roll into the fall, if you haven't saved money, if you haven't put things into place, if you haven't made the steps that say, I understand that the choices that I make have consequences, therefore I must make choices carefully. It is in the fall of the year that many people begin to experience for the first time in their life health issues. High blood pressure from eating all that pig and beef and other things because that's what you chose to do. And now you're dealing with consequences. Some genetic cancer begins to manifest in the fall. Things that begin to happen. You're like, what is going on? Well, you're going through life and now harvest time. So if your spiritual stability is not good, during the fall, you're going to go into other things, mental issues, depression, dissatisfaction, restlessness, and then many times lawlessness, because you just say, what the heck? Again, the harvest, viewers, the harvest is upon you. And again, can you turn back the clock? You can't turn back the clock, but you can choose to make a shift, because if your harvest does not look good and you're looking around and your children have not been what you felt they should be, and you have to be willing to acknowledge that, because children are the product of how they were trained. And you have to be willing to take not only responsibility for it, but you have to be willing to make those inner changes, as we talked about in another show, transformation. If I am going to live out the rest of my life with purpose as an influencer, as a get-it-done person, what has to change? And what has to change as you go into the fall and you're looking at your harvest, and that takes a tremendous amount of courage, I will say, to look at your harvest and to see, man, what? And that's when I come in, because I can tell you, you don't have to look back, but you do have to plan aggressively forward. And that is, you have to begin to save. You have to come out of debt. You have to control your lifestyle addiction. You have to, because when you go into the winter time, and winter will come as predictably as fall has shown up, and you have not put anything in place, you will have nothing. That is a sorrowful story that nobody wants to hear, but we're looking at it all around us, and if we're open with each other, we're looking at it at ourselves. We have to be responsible. That is a part of adulthood, and we have to be accountable, which is, I'm not pointing the finger at my childhood, at anything, because as an adult, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have to be willing to recognize if things were bad for you. And what did you do to change the story for your life? Because we all stand as individuals and we all have giftings and abilities that are unique to us. That's what God deposited in all of us. You got stuff that nobody else has. So if you get locked down in memory lane, and as I tell folks, who wants to go down memory lane? Oh, look at how it was then. Yeah. Look at how it was then. I was cray-cray. Okay? I can say that because, again, as I said with youth, it is what it is. So you give them grace, but you don't give them grace when they roll into their 30s. And if they're 40 and still doing dumb stuff, you want to see who their therapist is. And if they're 50 and still doing dumb stuff, you want to flee. You don't even want to be around them because you do recognize that something is off. And they probably got stuck and never got out of it, and they were able to ride things out. But then when they got to those older years and the harvest was sad and not much good, then, and they're still oblivious, everybody else is looking, but they're still oblivious, then all you can do is shrug your shoulders and keep moving. And whatever you do, do not have them call me. Do not. First, because I'm going to charge them, because I didn't do that to myself. And secondly, because at this point in my life, I don't want that kind of stress. When you see people that are disconnected from their harvest and don't even recognize what they've done, then, you know, that's not a person that you want to deal with. You pray that they have a family that loves and cares about them and is willing to help them if they have that going on, because the world is not willing to help you as a rule. I don't care how philanthropic people are. When they look at you and your harvest, which looks real sickly, they're not going to be willing to do a whole lot for you. That's just the honest truth. It really is. And for the record, young people, just keep living. You don't have to believe anything I'm telling you today. You don't have to believe anything, but I'm telling you the truth. You've got to change your mindset. You've got to change the way you look at things, and you've got to abandon memory lane. Forgive whoever stepped on you. Forgive whatever happened to you. You're not unique. Life is what it is. A lot of people get stepped on, and the winners dust off, let it go, forgive those who offended them, and run to the finish line. They don't get stuck. And so, as a later adult, you're looking at your harvest, you're looking at your family, you're looking at your workplace, you're looking at your spirituality, and you're also looking at your mental health, because it is during that period that other things begin to emerge that would give you cause for concern if you are sensitive at all, very sensitive. So, I'm going to take the positive side, and that is that you've looked at your scroungy harvest and you said, you know what, money lady, this is really, really sad. And I'm like, no, because it's about a journey. It's about a destination. And you can get to the finish line. And you can get to the finish line with great, great excitement, expectation, because I'm going to give you some good advice right now. Today is the best day of your life. Today, right now, as you're watching, this is the best day of your life. Many people didn't get to see today. They've gone on. Many people did not get to live abundantly in today. I'm talking about mental abundance, where you have the ability to think, to process, and then to execute. You live in a great country. I didn't say it was a perfect country, but this is a country that allows people to have their own businesses without the government confiscating your business. Okay? The government in other countries is the mafia. Or the mafia is the government, or however you want to do it. But over here, you don't have to pay people to be in business. What you do have to have is you have to have the discipline, the tenacity, and the I'm going to get this done attitude. You have to eliminate anything that looks like negative in your life, and that may be parents, family, friends. Anything that's not for you, you got to let it go because you're focused now. You have to look at how you're spending your money, and you have to look at where that attitude came from. And if it's a negative pattern, you have to be willing to let it go and to go just tough love for yourself, tough love for yourself. You have to be willing at the point that your harvest is bleak to say, it's not in season, but I guess I might have to plant some seeds inside my house and not outside so that they will get nurturing and love and attention and sprout. What does this translate out in real life? It means sitting down with your spouse, if you're married, and recognizing and coming to the conclusion that your harvest is sad and that both of you are responsible for this. Sitting down with your children and holding them accountable for things that you've not held them accountable to before. You do not teach your children good lessons by buying them shoes that will not add income to their life. You teach your children good lessons by giving them instructions in why they need life insurance. Yeah. Why? Because many young people can't get life insurance because of health conditions that they didn't know, and then there it is. You teach your children about the power of saving. You teach your children about the power of having a bank account, whether it's a credit union or bank. These are things you sit down and you say, my harvest is looking really bad, and me and your dad have decided to make a shift. Or if there's no dad on the scene, just I've decided to make a shift, and this is what I'm going to do, and I apologize. I apologize to you. You owe your children an apology if you have not trained them to survive in a way that's going to ensure that they will outlive this stuff. I mean, you just owe them an apology. But it's during that period where you get a chance to look at your harvest, and frankly, based on statistics, majority of people have very bad harvests. And because they are not willing to take advice now and put a halt to it, they go into the winter of their lives. And with trees, we're now moving into fall, now soon to be winter. The first thing a tree does, it starts dropping leaves. The leaves start turning yellow. And the streets are full of leaves because the tree is cutting off its circulation to feed the leaves and is focusing on developing and maintaining its root system during the winter. Now, if the tree got good sense to take care of itself and to make sure its root system is strong, then what is our excuse? There is no excuse. Let go of the leaves. Let go of the broken promises. Let go of the treacherous and totally worthless friends. Let go of the spending habits that bankrupted you. Let go of the leaves. Let them starve from lack of food, because that's why leaves hit the ground, okay, and die, and actually become fertilizer for next year. Isn't that something about what God does? He recycles everything. But in your particular case, look at the things, the leaves on your life that are hanging off of you that need to go. Cut off the blood. Stop feeding them. Stop it. And begin to focus on feeding yourself so that when you do enter the winter of your life, and you will, if you're alive, you will not be desperate and destitute. Because nothing is more sorrowful to me than trying to hold a conversation with people that are in their 60s and 70s and even 80s, because by the time they're 80, they have just resigned themselves to the inevitability of their lives. They get a retrospect and they don't have it going good. Now, I do know some people that do have it going good, but they had a bountiful harvest and they just continued to build and grow and capitalize. Once they had a good harvest, they just kept it going, kept it moving, and now they're able to enjoy in the winter the benefits of all those things that they did in the spring, summer, and fall. And they have a mindset that says, I'm going to live each day abundantly, positively, affirming all the good things that have come to me by the grace of God, but an awful lot of work on my part and discipline. That I took the downside strong, I took the upside great, and now I am in my 60s and I'm not fearful of retirement. I'm not trying to pinch, trying to make ends meet. I'm not worried about my health because I've lived an active, spontaneous life. I've eaten well, I've exercised. And so, again, life works out wonderful. This is not by chance or accident. Hear me. I'm your trusted advisor today. Hear me. You are in control of your situation. You are. If you continue to feed yourself garbage, there's not anything coming out of it. That's not just food, mental garbage. If you're not building on your brain will go another way. And you will find that your winter years will be sorrowful years. As so many people tell me, if only someone had told me. And my response is, and if I told you, would you have listened? If I told you, would you have listened? A wise person will listen. And hopefully the information I've shared with you today would give you pause for concern and to begin to look at your harvest. I hope it's a good harvest. I hope it's a bountiful harvest. And as I close today's session on who is your trusted advisor, I'm Michelle Graves, wishing you again only the very best in your life and in the days to come. And may your children rise up, and your grandchildren, and your neighbors, and your friends. May they rise up in the winter of your life and say, that was one amazing person. And I'm so grateful that God allowed them to spend time on earth with us. Concluding today's segment of The Power of Money, I'm your host, Michelle Graves. You take care, and you have a wonderful, blessed, and joyous day. I love you.